Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We are going to look at Imam Ghazali's views on reason, its type, its nature, and his views about the nature of rationality from different books, but we are starting with the Ihya al-Ulum. At the end of the Kitab al-Ilm is a section on rationality, reason, and its types. So we are going to look at that, and then we will go to his other books to see wherever he has talked about rationality or reason. We are going to look at it, and we'll try to arrive at a comprehensive view of Ghazali's conception of rationality and reason and all that. So we'll start. We're starting today, but it's going to take some time to finish this, and inshallah it will be beneficial for me and for others as well. Okay, so Imam Ghazali says bayanu haqiqatil aql wa aqsamihi. So haqiqatul aql and its types. So we're going to look at reason, al-aql is reason, or in English language we have other words as well, intellect, and also understanding. So we are going to use these words. Reason as the translation of al-aql, although reason in English language has a specific meaning as well, a specific type of rationality. But we won't go into that at this point. Okay, so reason and haqiqat. Haqiqa to shay, in order we write it with long tha, in Urdu and Farsi haqiqat, and the same words. Haqiqat means nature, essence, I think these are two more. So haqiqat of reason is haqiqatul aql, mean the nature of reason. What is the nature of reason? What is reason? And one way it is done in Islamic disciplines and following Aristotelian logic to a large extent is through definitions, defining terms. In Arabic, a definition is at-tarif, but logical definition, like Aristotelian type of definition, is called had. So Imam Ghazali here, just after this, talks about haddul aql, which means definition of reason. And non-logical or non-logical definition. Non-logical in the sense that the definition which doesn't follow the strict Aristotelian prototype, genus and then species and then specific difference. That's called rasmun or rasm. But sometimes had is used more loosely yeah, as definition in general and not a strictly logical definition. Anyway, so Imam and Aqsamuhu and its type. So Imam Ghazali is going to talk about 4 broad types of reason and their definition. And there are broad types, and within them we can come up with many other types. So I don't think Imam Ghazali mean to his typology. I don't think it is with the intention of al-hasr. What do we call al-hasr in English? Al-hasr. I'll say his types or his typology is not exhaustive, but it is rather illustrative. So illustration means, if somebody asks you what is bread and you wave a piece of bread or a loaf of bread to him and tell him or her this is bread. So that person doesn't mean to claim that the bread and its types are exhausted by what you are waving, but you are just pointing towards what the type of thing it is. So in that sense, Imam Ghazali's typology here is illustrative as well. So Bayanu Haqiqat al-Aql wa Aqsamuh. So it's talking about the reality or the nature of reason and its types. I start with pointing to this fact that إعلم أن الناس اختلفوا في حد العقل وحقيقته. People have a lot of different opinion about what is reason and what it's about its nature. So there are different views about many different views about what is reason and what is its nature. That is, they disagree about the definition of or haddul aql. And there's a lot of confusion because of that people don't realize that they are not talking about the same thing. So there are two, at least two immediate conclusions or the results of this difference of opinion about reason and its nature. So there are a lot of different opinions about reason. and its nature, the nature of reason, what is reason. And as a result, people disagree about the definition of reason. And so people have different views about reasons. And due to that, and often people don't realize that this difference of opinion is because reason has different types. And they might think that they're talking about the same thing. But in fact, they are talking about different things. So there are at least two possibilities here. One, because there are different types of reasons, in different conceptions of reason, we will come to that. Because people have different views about reasons. And if they don't realize that it's possible that one, they might think that they have different of opinion when in fact their differences are only their differences are not real differences, because they are actually talking about two different things, even though they are using one name, that of reason. So suppose, for example, there's a conception of reason, let's say reason 1 and reason 2, and A and B are arguing about reason, and B thinks certain things about reason, and A thinks certain other things about reason, and they think that they have real disagreement about the nature of reason, when in fact they don't have a real difference opinion or real disagreement, because without realizing they are actually talking about two different things. A is talking about reason 1 and B is talking about reason B, and so they don't necessarily disagree with each other, but they think that they disagree with each other because they don't realize that they're talking about two different things, even though they're using two different names, or the same name. So that's the first thing. And another possibility is that their differences are actually real, but since they don't realize that there are different types of reasons, they can't determine what they are actually disagreeing on, because they might be in agreement on certain types of reason, but might disagree on certain other types of reasons. So that's why it's very important to distinguish this distinction between reason and its different types. And reason, there's a lot of disagreement about reason, and obviously there are many different causes or reasons for that, but Ghazali is pinpointing one of the main reasons of disagreements about reason, and that reason with small r, or that that reason, or that cause of that difference, is that people have many different views about reason. So in that sense, there are many different types of reasons, and they don't realize this fact, and they think that by reason we mean reason is just the reason is something which refer to something specific, static, I guess, and they are disagreeing about that, when in fact there are different views about reason, and there are different types of reasons consequently, and that's why many of the differences of opinion can be resolved when we realize that we are talking about different things, or at least we can systematize our differences, or regimentize our differences, or streamline our differences. So there's a lot of confusion about what reason is, and some of that confusion can be traced to the fact that there are different views about reason, but people seem to think that when they talk about reason, they are referring to something. So they're referring to the same things, one meaning, for example. So Imam Ghazali is saying that people have differences of opinion, sharp differences about the definition of reason and its nature, its essence. And one of the main, or one of important reason for that is that they have ignored the fact that most of them have ignored the fact that this name, that is reason, is applied to many different meanings, and that's فَصَارَ ذَلِكَ سَبَبَ اخْتِلَافٍ. So this ignorance of this fact that by reason we mean different things, many different meanings by this word, became the cause of their differences about reasons, or at least the cause of the confusion about what reason is. So this is the important distinction Imam Ghazali is making here about word and its meaning, and two types of meaning in a sense. So al-aql, or reason, is a word, and every word has meaning, or meaningful words anyway, and meaning are of two types: reference and what we call connotation, or in a more philosophical language, conception, rather than logical language. So al-aql, al-ma'na, meaning, can be a tasawwur, a conception of a thing, or ma sadaq, its reference. And we cannot determine the reference of a thing without knowing its meaning. And if there are more than one meaning of a word, then obviously there are more than one references, and particular meaning would have a particular reference. So that's why differentiating different meanings, different conceptions, and different references is important for defining a word and understanding a word and resolving our differences. And at least also, if we can't resolve those differences, then understanding at least that we differ on that. Yeah. So علم أن الناس اختلفوا في حد العقل وحقيقته. And people have a lot of differences about the nature of reason, its definition, and its essence. And one of the reasons for this is that most people have ignored the fact that reason is a word which has many different meanings. And this ignorance of this fact became, the main reason for their confusion about and the differences on what reason is and what is its nature. So here Imam Ghazali actually makes a very fundamental distinction, and that fundamental distinction, which people even today a lot of people don't get this distinction, and that's the distinction between the meaning, word and meaning, and different types of meanings. That is reference and connotation, reference or conception, and the fact that without if we have different connotations of same word, then we would have different references of that word, or at least the different references to different aspects of a same thing. And in modern logic and epistemology, we describe this phenomena as a word, a thing, and different conceptions about a word. Different conceptions. So what we can rephrase all this in terms of different conception, reason and its different conceptions or different views about it. So we can say that reason, we have different conceptions of reason. So here we distinguish between a thing and our view of that thing. And that results in even if there is the same thing like physically or same mental phenomena, we can have different views about that things, more than one at least. They can be correct, they can be partial, etc. And generally our views don't exhaust the nature of a thing because of our finitude. So we have this distance between a thing and our conception of a thing. And the same distance makes sure that we can view the same thing differently. We can have different views about the same thing, which can actually result in generation of more than one references. And this distance is also the reason why we can make errors, and also we can be correct about things. So this distance between thing and our view of the thing, that distance makes sure that we can have truth and falsehood. Because if there was no distance, there wouldn't have any question of truth and falsehood. There wouldn't have any question of error. Or getting something correctly. And this distance is our freedom. And the same applies to reason and our own self. Reason, whatever it is, we can always have different views about reason. Or in other words, we have different conceptions of reason. We have different concepts of reasons. What concept Imam Al-Ghazali referred to it as ma'na, al-ma'na, which also means meaning. But when he's talking about meaning, he's meaning in the sense of concepts. So people have different, so there's one word, but it is applied to different concepts or refers to different concepts. And these different concepts are generated because we have distance. We have distance between this thing called reason and our reflection on that thing, or our views on this thing. And this is due basically to our freedom. And that's why we can get different conception of the same thing, and we can generate different references based on our generation of different concepts of something which is referred to by one word, for example, reasoning. So in other words, the core one of the main reasons for our differences about reason and confusion about reason is we don't realize that there's a thing called reason. We think that there's one thing, but this one thing, we have different concepts about this one. So that means it is not a one thing, or if it is a one thing, it generates many other things. So when we are using one concept, we might be referring to one thing or one aspect of a same thing, etc. And our concepts can never exhaust the reality of reason itself because of our finitude. So that's the thing Imam Ghazali points out here, and in that sense he is well beyond his times. People in his days made this mistake of not realizing that reason is one thing, and our views of reason and consequently different concepts of reason is something else, is a different thing. and even today people don't actually grasp this. So, and this distinction between reason and concepts, different concepts of reason, actually results in different types of reasons he's talking about, different kinds of reason he's talking about. So this was sort of an introduction to the whole discussion. Next time we'll look at a different type of reason Ghazali comes up with. There are 4 types, and then we'll reflect on that once we have covered them.